4 straight, but in the wrong direction as the Washington Commanders drop another winnable game. Group therapy time coming up right now, live from FedExField on the Locked On Commanders podcast.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Commanders fans, to the Locked On Commanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are your daily podcast covering the Washington Commanders, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube and the WUSA 9 Plus app on your Roku or your Amazon Fire Stick. And of course, thank you for making us your first listener, your first view every single day, especially on game days when you join us live, usually from FedExField, not usually with good news. But in the meantime, I'm David Harrison. My co-host right here is Chris, the Rooster Russell, both of us credentialed media covering your Commanders. Chris is doing it for the Team 980, where you can find he and Pete Medhurst live 9 a.m. to noon Eastern time or anytime on the Audacy app. And, of course, me, you can find me at Commander Country, where I write for Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation.
Yes, indeed. David, today's episode of Locked On Commanders is presented by our friends at Prize Picks. That's right, Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. They're fun, unlike some other things. Pick between 2 and 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you the final score. And David, before we get into the heavy analysis,
It's okay. Just hang
all right, we're here at FedExField. Sorry, I forgot to turn on my microphone. I get it right, guys. You know, nobody's perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. The Commanders drop a 4th straight game heading to Chicago, this time in heartbreaking fashion. I mean, the last couple of losses obviously have not been that way. 21-17, the final score here in Landover, Maryland. But, David, as we get into the root of what happened today, a couple of big picture items that make up our main storyline. Once again, too many mistakes. Again, penalties, costly turnover at the end, which we're going to break down in full detail, and then some questionable clock management, challenge usage of timeouts by Ron Rivera and the Washington Commanders. Those are our kind of big picture items, if you will. But, David, we have to start at the very end. On the final play of Sunday's game, Carson Wentz throws an interception from the Tennessee 2-yard line, and the game is over. And there's so many things to unpack on one specific play. And I know you and I have been talking about it since literally the game ended. So let's get right to it. What did you see?
Yeah, so, I mean, literally, like you said, as soon as the game is over, we kind of had a quick powwow before we went downstairs to the press conference and the locker room session and immediately had a disagreement. And I talked to one of the other media members here on the way down to the locker room, and he and I agreed. But then I immediately heard David Aldridge during the press conference with Ron Rivera say, well, of course you're not going to do exactly what I and this other person think that should have been done. So it's definitely a topic that's going to be up for debate, and something that people are going to be talking about is exactly what happened, not just during the very last play of the game, or well, technically the last play, but the last offensive play of the game for the Washington Commanders, but really that entire sequence, right? So you go down to how the Washington Commanders got to the 2-yard line in the first place. Christian Fulton, defensive back for the Tennessee Titans, call for pass interference against Terry McLaurin, puts the ball right there in prime position, 19 seconds. The problem is, because of some of these other issues that we've kind of touched on here, the challenges and the time management and timeout management and all that, 19 seconds, ball's on the 2-yard line, but there's no timeouts left. Now, I nudged you immediately when the flag was down there. Now, granted, I thought the flag was going to put the ball like right on the 1, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. So it's a little bit closer, but really, I mean, you're talking about a distance 3 feet, which doesn't sound like a lot, but in the NFL, it's a lot. 3 feet is a lot of ground to cover. I nudged you immediately and said, Brian Robinson Jr., game-winning touchdown. Like, can you script it any better than it was scripted, for the Washington Commanders? They come out the huddle for the first play, first down, first and goal from the 2-yard line. J.D. McKissick in the backfield. Tennessee Titans coach Mike Vrabel calls a timeout. They want to talk about it. They come out. Washington Commanders line up in essentially the same formation, if not the exact same formation. I didn't chart the formation before the timeout, so I don't know if it's the exact same. Either way, J.D. McKissick lines up in the backfield again with Carson Wentz. And what we end up seeing is pass plays and ultimately an interception by Tennessee Titans linebacker David Long. Now, what led to this whole thing? Again, you talk about the penalties and some of these things that reared their ugly heads for the Commanders. Again, penalties killed the Commanders for the Dallas Cowboys a week ago, as we all know. Early in the game, let's rewind a little bit actually and talk about early momentum. Right, we keep talking about this team starting fast and getting points on the board as a way to help the defense. They had a couple of penalties. One negated an 8-yard run on first down, which was Brian Robinson Jr.'s first carry of the game of the season. Second drive of the game. So they go from 2nd and 2 to 1st and 20. I think it was a hold. So 1st and 20, end up punting the ball away. They go 3 and out instead of 2nd and 2, most likely a first down. And then they had another penalty that gave the Tennessee Titans a new set of downs on 3rd down that would have gotten them off the field. So again, just kind of shooting themselves in the foot. And then we get down to this last minute situation where you hope to not even be in the need to have this. And Chris, I think they should have tried running on first down. So I'm interested to see where the chat's going to go on this. I think they should have tried a run. Now I've got a specific run that I think they should have tried. And this other media member and I discussed this, but I want to hear first and foremost, because I know you already disagree with me.
Yeah.
But I think they should have tried to go in there with a run. I'll dive deeper. But initially, just what were your thoughts?
All right. Normally, I was going to say I like to run the football. Okay. So normally I wouldn't disagree with you. Here's my problem. With 19 seconds left, no timeouts. I'm not going to trust this operation, which literally cannot help throwing up all over itself half the time, to get it right, to run the football. Maybe you don't get the touchdown, right? Maybe you do. Maybe you don't. Not get the touchdown, then get back to the line of scrimmage, David, and either run another play in the waning seconds or spike the ball, not take a penalty, not have a 10-second runoff, not have another horrific mistake being made, which is what they do. I could not take that chance if I'm Ron Rivera with no timeouts left and, again, under 20 seconds. Now, I think the problem is, and this is where Commanders fans are going to go nuts, right? Not only what happens on the final couple of plays, the final couple of throws, because you could make an argument Carson Wentz should have been intercepted on first, second, and ultimately on that final play on the 3rd down throw. But you could make an argument he should have probably lost the game maybe on the 1st down play, which was a lollipop pass to the back part of the end zone, which Tennessee actually did intercept, but the guy was out of bounds by a half step. I'm going to say this. The Commanders took over at 4:35 left on the clock, down by 4, and they ran 18 plays that counted. 18 plays that counted. 2 penalties, which were no plays on the Commanders, and 1 no play, the penalty, the defensive pass interference that you were talking about. So it was really 21 plays, but again, 3 don't count. 18 plays, no points. Now, you used all 3 of your timeouts on that drive. 1 on a challenge of a Cam Sims, what looked live like a spectacular catch. They didn't overturn it. Maybe if they would have called it a catch on the field. I can't kill Ron Rivera for challenging that. That's a big spot. That's a 3rd down situation. If you don't get the 1st down there, you've got to go for it on 4th down, which is exactly what they did, and they were able to run it. J.D. McKissick, Ryan Robinson had 2 key 1st down conversions, 1 on the 4th down right after the Cam Sims challenge and 1 on a 2nd down. Anyway, they matriculate the ball down the field, right? But they hurt themselves with the penalties, the near turnovers, the everything. And then on the final play, and this is, again, you wanted to run. I understand why you wanted to run it. They weren't able to run the football effectively all day, so that's part of why they can't run it, in addition to the clock machinations, right? But then on top of that, David, on the final play, and this is where I want to lead you in, is I think that Carson Wentz maybe should have seen Terry McLaurin before he gets bumped off of his route. It looks like he's looking certainly in that general direction. Now, you contend, that he's staring solely and exclusively at J.D. McKissick out of the backfield, whereas to me, it looked like, and when I slowed it down, it looked like he should have seen Terry McLaurin. Now, maybe that's not option number 1 on the play, but you know what? No. I'm going to Terry in that spot, and I know Terry gets bumped off his route, but Terry was open initially, and if that's the design, I don't love the design there.
Yeah.
I want Terry to get that target, period. However, I've got to get it.
Yeah. So we're going to dive into this a little bit more here. Obviously, like I said, the way that this game ended is a big topic of conversation. So we're going to get into this here a little bit more in the next segment. Before we do that, and before we dive a little bit more into the run versus pass situation and what actually happened on the pass play that was called, because obviously that's the decision that was made. We do have a friend of the show that needs to get a message out to the good people.
Absolutely, and that's Prize Picks. I tried to tell you about it, but maybe my microphone failed me, like Carson Wentz failed the Commanders in the end. Sorry, mistakes happen. Again, what's Prize Picks? Well, they're essentially daily fantasy sports with a twist. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to pick between 2 and 5 individual players to go more or less than their Prize Pick projections, just like I did last Monday night. You can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. Last week, David, I didn't win 10 times my money, but I won $7.50. I'm rich on the Monday night game between San Francisco and LA, a 4-player flex. They have all sorts of options. You can take any position, any player, any sport. It doesn't have to just be the NFL. It could be, of course, the NBA. It could be Major League Baseball with the playoffs in full swing, college football. Am I doing it again? I don't know what's going on here. Anyway, entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy, safe and fast withdrawals. Currently operational in over 30 states and Canada. Download the Prize Picks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code Locked On. If you deposit $100, Prize Picks is going to give you $100. If you deposit $50, Prize Picks is going to give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On. Be better than me at sign up and sign up for your instant deposit match for up to $100. All right. Thanks again for making the Locked On Commanders podcast your first listen and your first view each and every day. Make sure you check out NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL, Locked On NFL's local experts. That would be us. Give you the inside scoop on the 5 biggest games of the NFL weekend, including Sunday and Monday Night Football. Plus, you get betting advice from the field's leading experts, our friends at BetOnline. Follow NFL Key Predictions every Friday on Locked On NFL. It's available on the Audacy app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, so continuing on the final play, you have a very different spin on it than I am, which I think is more than fair. So I want to turn it over to you. Am I crazy? And you can be honest. You can tell me I'm nuts for thinking that Terry McLaurin should be number 1 on that particular play. And even if he's not, for crying out loud, can we improvise? Can we try and get the ball to Terry McLaurin? Please?
So I totally see where you're coming from, but I want to go back real quick to the run versus pass. Right. Going back to the first down, first and goal from the 2-yard line, 19 seconds. Again, no timeout. So you're in a dire situation, right? And you know, listen, nobody's really wrong. What's wrong is the fact that what they didn't work. So anybody who says to do something different is going to automatically seem to be more correct because you don't know what would have happened in my alternate dimension. I mean, in my alternate dimension, perhaps you hand the ball to Brian Robinson and for some reason he fumbles. And now his first game in the NFL is actually mired in a fumble that maybe gets returned for a touchdown. You never know what's going to actually happen. But just from a philosophical standpoint, right? And I try to stay away from terms of I would have done ABC because I've never been an NFL coach. I've never been close to being an NFL coach. I've never been interviewed to be an NFL coach. So I don't like to say I would have done. What I like to say is what I would like to see the team do in the future because I'm an observer, right? That's what I'm here to do. So what I would like to observe them do in the future is run the ball. And look, Ron Rivera was asked about this out of this specific context, right? But you remember, so they run a play earlier, they call a timeout. They run another play, you call a timeout. So that's how you burn your timeouts. And he was asked about calling 2 plays at once in the huddle to Carson Wentz. And basically his answer, once they got around to the final answer, was no, they didn't do that. And that's not something that they decided to do in that moment. So this is kind of where I'm coming from. So for me, when you come out in the shotgun formation, right, literally it's right over here over my shoulders. You line up, and if you guys go back and watch the play, the Tennessee Titans come out in their base front. So they've got 4 down linemen, 3 or 4 actually, don't quote me on that, but 3 or 4, either way, there's gaps in there. And you have a quarterback who is like 6 foot 17 inches, super tall, known as a tough guy, right? Not a super athletic guy, but you're talking about 2 yards here. Check into a run, and I'm talking a quarterback draw. And Honestly, I would probably like Jonathan Williams in that situation, but he's on the sideline. He had a knee injury and was ruled out for the game at that point in time. I would love Brian Robinson Jr. in that situation. I'm going to get to that here in a minute. But even if you don't, even if you just put your quarterback up there, you tell your offensive line, push the line of scrimmage, get us 6 yards and let Carson Wentz, or you can get us 5.5 and let Carson Wentz do the other 6 inches. Do it. If you don't make it, the line of scrimmage is literally where you're laying. The ball is right where it's got to be. Everybody stands up. You let the referee place the ball. If you're lucky, maybe you get a penalty. It stops the clock for delay a game on the defense, trying to lay on guys or something like that. And you have a second play called. Maybe it's another run. Maybe it's a play action boot. Maybe it's a pass play. Whatever it is, you have a second play run. So on first down, you're trying to run the ball. If you don't make it in, the line of scrimmage is right where you're laying. You stand up. You let the ref set the ball, because we learned that lesson in Dallas last year, right? And then you run your second play. If it's a pass play or a spike, the clock is dead. You come back with your next best play. So that's kind of point number one. And I don't think we're ever going to agree on it. So I'm just basically throwing all this information out there for those of you who are going to have this argument at work tomorrow. You can use whatever ammo from Chris or I that you agree with, that you want to go with. The second part is, Ron Rivera said in his press conference, when Brian Robinson Jr. was in the game, the Titans were going all out, basically just going after him all out, which feeds your point. 9 carries, 22 yards for Brian in his first game back, 2.4 yards per average. Not a good rushing average for Brian overall, right? If I know the Tennessee Titans are going all out after Brian Robinson, again, you go to the situation, right? What did I do? I nudged you immediately. I said, Brian Robinson, game-winning touchdown. What a story. Hollywood couldn't script it any better. What are the Titans going to be thinking? Put Brian Robinson in there? They're going to be thinking the exact same thing. So what's a perfect play call for that situation? Play action. You do hit play action with Brian Robinson up the middle. You move the pocket to the right or the left. You bring a tight end like Cole Turner over there with you. Again, in my scenario, right, it's going to work out perfectly and beautifully, and the Washington Commanders are going to win this game. Is it going to work if they actually execute it? Do they even have that in their playbook? We don't see a lot of pocket movement from this offense. But those are two other things. Those are kind of two of the things that I'm looking at before we talk about the actual play, which I think is more important. So I'll give you a quick second to react. But I don't think we need to debate too much, because I don't think we're going to get either end to agree. I'm going to make this
very quick. Where I agree with you is making it look like a run and then passing out of it off of play action. Even if you don't want to do play action, because they're not a great play action team, make it look like a run. Bring in 12 personnel. Bring in 13 personnel. Bring in Brian Robinson, like you said, in the backfield, and run a pass play out of it. Instead, they looked all pass spread, J.D. McKissick in the backfield, boom, and they knew pass.
Yeah, J.D. is your receiving back. That's what he's in there. I mean, he gets some carries, but that's what he is in there for. We had a comment earlier saying that the team never really committed to the run today like they did against the Dallas Cowboys, and I agree with that. You can't use the run as a threat if you don't establish the run in the first place. Now, the actual play in question. Yes. So first question, first topic, get the ball to Terry McLaurin. Absolutely. He's your number one wide receiver for a reason. He's your star wide receiver. You need to have something in your repertoire. Listen, if it's 1st and 10, 1st 15, 1st and 20, 1st and 5 because of a defensive penalty, we need to have plays for Terry. If it's 2nd and 5, 10, 15, 20, we need to have plays designed for Terry. You get where I'm going with this. Every scenario in the playbook, you need to have something designed for Terry McLaurin. That's what you pay your stars for. That's what number 17 wants. Now, on the play in question, so where I was sitting, which is right next to you, just so happens that basically the direction that Carson Wentz threw that ball, guys, is exactly like if he were to elevate up to the second level of the stadium where the press box is and throw that ball, he'd have thrown it right at my face. When the ball got snapped, I'm immediately watching Carson Wentz. Why? Because what have we been talking about, guys, for the last few weeks? He likes to stick on a read, and he likes to telegraph his throws. So I'm looking for him because, again, JD is in there, so I'm expecting pass. I'm not expecting run, just like the Tennessee Titans weren't expecting run, right? Tennessee Titans immediately – well, at that point, absolutely, it would have made no sense. But the Tennessee Titans immediately drop in zone. Carson immediately looks over to his left. From my read, looks like he's reading JD out of the backfield immediately and never moves. And I literally said internally, because we're all watching the play, so there is no like during the play conversation, right? Mm-hmm. But in my own head, I'm waiting for him to come off the look. And I'm literally saying to myself, you got to come off the look. You can't just stick at that point in time on one look. He fires it to the exact same place he was looking at the entire time. The ball gets intercepted. I did physically what I think he did mentally, which was And that was all she wrote.
Without knowing exactly who was number one on the play, again, what you're saying makes sense, that it looks like he's looking at J.D. McKissic, but I can make the argument that, again, it looks like he's looking at Terry McLaurin initially and quickly scans just to the left after Terry clears out and settles on McKissic, who then settles into the zone out of the backfield, right? Listen, we can debate this from now until kingdom come. The bottom line is they're never going to tell us who was number one on the play.
Right.
They're never going to tell us what exactly he was supposed to do and not do. Was Terry trying to clear out? I don't know. Was he supposed to go to Terry? We don't know. We can battle this all day long. My point being, David, is that, well, let me just say this. A great quarterback, I think, is going to make that play and make that throw, and 8 out of 10 times, maybe 9 out of 10 times. And to me, if it goes incomplete, I still got one more play because there was, I think, 7 or 8 seconds left on the clock. I still have fourth down, one more play. But by throwing it into then double coverage because the linebacker sinks down in front of J.D. McKissic, that's the problem. You don't give yourself a second chance.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we agree on is find a way to get Terry the ball. Like in that situation, you need to find a way to get Terry. Or
that's the best
Cam
way to say
Sims. I don't know if it was the final play, but it was either the final play or the play before that. Cam Sims came off the field. I thought that was absolutely insane.
Curtis Samuel apparently was open on the right side of the formation.
I saw
on
that
final
as well.
Play. I haven't seen that.
I didn't see the play. I saw
Okay.
other people talking about it as well. So listen, guys. We know some of you are losing patience with this team. Some of you already lost patience with this team, and I applaud you for sticking through 5 weeks of this as much as you had. But we've got some silver linings we're going to bring up here in just a minute. Yes, we do. One of those silver linings, of course, is the best tasting protein bar you're ever going to have if you give them a shot.
Absolutely. If you guys haven't tried Built Bar Puffs yet, you are depriving yourself of one of life's greatest joys. You can't always get a Commander's win, but you could get a Built Bar Puff and take your misery away. And guess what? They have a new flavor. It's indulgent cookie dough. Who doesn't love cookie dough covered in chocolate? That's right. Built Bar has done it again. Let me introduce you guys to, again, a new favorite. They sent us a sample box. They are delish. Cookie dough chunk puffs have a light and chewy texture. Real cookie dough chunks, just like all the Built products. They are wonderful and they are healthy for you. Loaded in protein, 15 grams of protein, as a matter of fact, the collagen protein that breaks down very easily, low in calories, low in sugar, low in net carbs, low in all the bad stuff, high in taste and quality, just like Built does. And again, like all Built bars, the new cookie dough chunk puff is again covered in 100% silky smooth chocolate. So it's wonderful for the taste buds. So here's what you're going to do, guys. Go to Built.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON15. That's LOCKEDON15 to get 15% off your order at Built.com. Again, use that promo code LOCKEDON15.
All right, guys, wrapping up this live episode of the Locked On Commanders podcast, live here from FedExField, where the Washington Commanders just dropped their third straight game to go 1-4. We'll do it again in 4 days, 3 days if you're listening or watching this post live on Monday, which we appreciate you as well. We'll do this again in 3 days from Chicago. I will be in Chicago. I love Chicago, so it's going to be a great trip no matter what happens in the game. I do love the city.
I love Chicago deep dish pizza. I do not love Soldier Field. I'm just going to say.
I enjoy Soldier Field.
It's okay. It's all right. And listen, I mean, the Bears and the Commanders on Thursday night doesn't exactly get the fire stoked.
Following the Colts and Broncos, amazing appearance. All right, guys. So we're looking for silver linings here for the Washington Commanders. Not even for the Washington Commanders. They're going to find their own silver linings. We're looking for silver linings for you guys, right? Because we do this show for you. We want you to enjoy it. We want you to have some fun with it. That's why we try to keep things a little light, even when things aren't going so well. So here is my silver lining. We did see offensive improvements.
Yes, we did.
We did. Granted, they didn't come in the chunks that maybe you would want, right? And they didn't come consistently. And they didn't, there were definitely regressions and there were moments. Andrew Norwell did not have a very good sequence there. I mean, I'm not even, what? We're going to move on. There's something else I wanted to say. I'm not going to say it. Andrew Norwell had a very rough.
Over here making primal weird noises about how bad Andrew Norwell. 2 drives back to back.
Right.
I think he had 4 terrible plays in those 2 drives. Yeah. We put them all on, at LO Commanders and at D Harrison 82. And, I was trying to keep up with it. It's just, there's no other way to describe it other than right now he's overmatched. He's overmatched. That's not a silver lining, but maybe the silver lining is Chris Paul, perhaps the rookie 7th round pick.
We will absolutely. I feel like we're going to see that sooner rather than later, and that's actually the other silver lining is we're finally starting to see some accountability, right? Yeah. And listen, this is something we talked about last year is when coaches start calling players out by name, and I know they've stopped doing that, right? But we heard Chase Young was alluded to last year. Some other guys were alluded to last year. We've heard about Deron Payne's effort issue sometimes, which, by the way, I think Deron is having a very good season for himself, very quietly because of everything going on, but I think a very good season. And then Jamin Davis got a lot of it earlier this year. Now, they've backed away from doing that. But what we said back then was if you're going to start calling players out by name, that's basically your last straw. Like, that's got to be the last warning shot before you're getting pulled off the field. William Jackson III got pulled off the field on Sunday. Now, Coach Rivera was asked about it in the post-game press conference, basically said they decided to make a change. He was pressed for more information. They said, we decided to make a change. The coaches decided to make a change. Basically left it at that. William Jackson was asked about the situation in the locker room afterwards. Basically said that his back injury that he's been dealing with was acting up again, and he essentially realized that he couldn't perform at the height that he wanted to, and that's what happened.
Right.
I will leave you guys. Head coach had an opportunity to talk about a guy being injured. He was never announced as injured during the game or after the game. I will let you guys determine what you want from that. We've got more to come on that later. I'm actually writing something up for Commander Country before I leave the stadium tonight. But when you start seeing players getting held accountable and held accountable by losing reps, that, as much as it's frustrating because it means you're losing, that is a good thing because it hopefully will wake up the other guys who need a wake-up call.
Well, it essentially happened last week in Dallas, too, with Trey Turner at right guard and Cedric Charles, and we'll see what happens with Andrew Norwell. And you mentioned the William Jackson situation. Listen, we don't have the time right now in this live edition of LOC to get really deep, but I think on our next edition, David, we should have the debate about whether whether he's been used right, whether it signified a divide between the head coach and the defensive coordinator when they signed him. And I have a lot of theories, if you will, and maybe some data and some beliefs and some things that I've heard that we can revisit when we're talking about this in full length. But David's right. William Jackson III essentially got benched. The coach is not going to call it a benching. He's going to call it a change. WJ3 says, my back. David's right. They never made any announcement. There was many of opportunities to say, his back was tight. He couldn't play. Remember, he missed a game 2 weeks ago, right? That was the back, right? So, again, there's something that could be there, but they never, ever, ever indicated that it was about his health. We'll get more into that. Here's my silver lining. Guys, the Bears aren't very good either. The Commanders stink. But the Bears aren't very good either.
Facts about the Bears part, less facts about the Commanders stinking part, although it's hard to argue.
Listen, they're 1-4. You are what you are, right? It's hard, like close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. This is football. You got to find a way to win games that are winnable at home against a so-so mediocre offense. You've got to find a way, even though they did some things right. But the Bears aren't very good either. And this feels like a much better overall offensive and defensive performance, even with plenty of glitches, than we got the last 2 weeks against Dallas and Philadelphia. So the only thing you can hope for is at 1-4, it doesn't become 1-5 and disastrous, and that you get back to 2-4, and then maybe you can put the pieces back together. Again, certainly not going to be a cakewalk, certainly not going to be easy, but that's the only thing you can hope for, and that's the only silver lining we can walk away with.
Yeah, and look, you hope that, the biggest thing that the Bears really have for them to threaten the Commanders right now is they have a mobile quarterback who can do some damage with his arm, kind of, and his legs. He's like 2 years ago Jalen Hurts is basically what Justin Fields is right now. And the Commanders bottled up now Jalen Hurts pretty well. So they should be able to bottle up 2 years ago Jalen Hurts in 4 days as we're live, 3 days if you're watching this or listening to this later. So that is a silver lining. Donnie Brown, congratulations.
Yes.
You know what I mean? If he happens to hear it or see it or someone tells him, congratulations. First two career touchdown passes. And I know that he's been wanting to get on the field, working his way on the field. So to get out there in his opportunity and ball out, he said in the locker room, personally, very good game. But at the end of the day, the team lost. So it puts a damper on it for sure. Congratulations to Brian Robinson for getting out there. Congratulations to Cole Turner for being active for his first NFL game. Not quite the connection we wanted for him and Carson Wentz, but still some good guys. Shout out to everybody who, so many, I can't possibly get them all, But DJ, we got a few mics out there. K-Plaque, the Hawk TV, Santiago, who's been helping us kind of stay positive a little bit. We appreciate all of you for hanging out here with us and going through this group therapy session. The greatest part is free and available on all platforms.
Absolutely. We indeed are. So thank you again, as David just said, for making the Locked On Commanders podcast your first listen and watch of the day. And always, we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every day. Now make your second listen and view the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson giving you the expert NFL analysis in less than 30 minutes. It's free and available wherever you got your podcasts. If you guys want to hop in, as you know, on the voicemail, 301-615-3577. That's 301-615-3577. Or if you want the email variety, it's LockedOnWashingtonCommanders@gmail.com. Again, coming up next episode, we will have reaction to Ron Rivera's Monday afternoon press conference after he gets to watch the tape, and more on William Jackson III and where this team goes from here, besides to Chicago on a short week for Thursday Night Football. For my partner, David Harrison, right here for SI.com's Fan Nation and Commander Country. I'm Chris Russell, one half of the Russell and Medhurst show on the Team 980 and the Audacy app. If you're out and about, please be safe. Be kind to one another. Don't you dare drive like a maniac. Don't be too depressed. It is just football, right? I know it's been a long 30 years for all of us, and thank you for joining us right here on the Locked On Commanders podcast.